channel. Today I'm going to be doing a whole completely different twist on my video. I'm actually going to talk about something that you know is dear to me. It's trucking. My husband and I have a trucking company, and I rarely speak on that, but today I'm actually going to do that today. I have done some research on YouTube, and I rarely see any videos talking about the trucker's wife or building a family or anything like that. And for those of you who are trying to get into trucking or wonder what that lifestyle is like, I'm here to give you firsthand on my experience being a trucker's wife and kind of let you guys know the ups and the downs that we go through. So if you want to see more about this video, stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to give it to you raw and plain as best as I know how. Now, there are a few things I want to touch on because I have a little note here, because these are some of the things that I wrote down that I don't want to forget to discuss on here. But if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes because I've really been thinking about that, and I want to put that out there because I feel like this information will help somebody if they come across this video. So one of the first things that you have to understand in the trucking industry, as a couple, there must be trust. As you know, you're going to be separated from each other for most of the time if you are not on the truck with your partner and one is home, like I am home, and he's on the truck. So there must be a trust bond between us. I have to trust that he says he's where he's at, and he has to trust that I'm home and I don't do anything stupid, because it's not just on the truck, or because he has the advantage of being out and can travel different places. I could very well be bringing people to the house. So there must be a trust. However, we do kind of like communicate with each other daily, if not all day long, then at least 80% of the day, we're on the phone with each other, whether it's FaceTime, texting, or on a voice call. But even with that, some people still find the time in between to do some funny shit. But for the most part, we good in that department. But understand that trust has to come first and foremost. If not, if you're constantly worried about, what's going on, or if you have any hiccup, or if you have any inclination that something is going on, then you really need to check that ASAP, because you either won't sleep at night, or you guys will constantly argue. You'll always have speculations, and things just will not be right. So get that in order first and foremost before you guys get into trucking, or if while you're in trucking, find that balance where you can be at peace with yourself and understand that the trust is there and there's nothing going on, to make it easier for you guys to move on if this is the journey you guys want to take. So that's that. Also, there must be a communication barrier between you guys. Like, I believe that you guys, or anyone as a couple in the trucking industry, should always have that communication line open, because truckers have it hard out there when they are going through what they're going through on the road, whether it's dealing with a shipper or a receiver, their dispatcher, if they have a student on the truck or some type of partner on the truck, as far as a train, another driver, or it could just be traffic in itself, or the weather condition, dealing with the truck itself, or a load or something. They go through a lot. It's a lot. I would have to go into details about that, but I'm just saying that there's a lot that they go through, and sometimes it gets lonely, and to not be able to have someone to talk to, or, like if they're on the road and they're dealing with, whether it's a family issue, like something with their parents, or a child issue or something, and they want to talk about it, you have to be there for them, not just as the spouse, but as a friend, just to listen, not cast just judgment, and kind of help them and motivate them. And like, you just need to be that person for them, because trust me, it pays out. Because a lot of them, when they don't have that support, they can do a lot of weird stuff. Thankfully, we didn't have to go through that, or have not gone through that yet, but anytime we encounter a little situation, we usually talk about it. And if the conversation gets too hostile, we back away and then come back and revisit the conversation, and then we work it out. But you need to have that balance between you guys for that mutual support. Also, you guys have to have a goal. You cannot just come into trucking and say, man, trucking makes a lot of money, or that's what I want to do, and you don't have a goal as to why you're doing what you're doing. Most people get into trucking and just say, oh, the money's right. And then once they get into it and they start realizing what it really is, then they back out. You have to have a goal prior to going into trucking. Do you want to just have the one truck, have an actual fleet? What exactly are you in it for? Or if you are in it just to build some money up and come out, you need to know what you're going into trucking for. Don't just hop in it and think that, oh, I'm going to get rich off of that. It doesn't happen like that. I have not seen anyone do that yet. Yes, you can make some money, but you can also blow that money too. And also, there are high peaks and low peaks in trucking. So there are seasons where you can make a boku amount of money, and then there are seasons where it's like, what the heck is going on? What is going on with the trucking industry? So you just got to know what your goal is when you come into trucking. Okay, moving right along. Moving in as far as dealing with trucking, the pay, it's good, it's great, depending on the area that you want to be in, as far as like, do you want to be reefer, do you want to be flatbed, or do you want to be a tanker, or whatever the other variations are. There's different levels to it. And then also, do you want to be a lease operator, owner operator, or what's the other one, a company driver? There's different levels that make different types of pay. So you'd have to actually research that to know where exactly you want to fit in at and where you want to venture in, basically. So do your research on that. But in speaking of the aspect of the couple has to understand what kind of income it is and what to expect, because you're not going to have a set paycheck like this is what you're going to make every week. It doesn't work like that. Some people might get paid every week, every 2 weeks, every month, however it works out. But it's crazy. It is really crazy, because sometimes you can have a full week of work, but you may not even get paid to, like, especially for detention, for like 2 weeks later or a month later, and you've already forgotten about the detention, and you're like, where did this money come from? So sometimes you have to, even if you, what I would suggest is that you guys keep up with your loads, how much it pays, your fuel, and also detention. So you can always keep up with payroll and ask them, hey, have I gotten paid for this yet? Am I getting paid for this? When am I going to get paid for this? Because a lot of times they act like they forget. And if you're not on them, it's almost like they don't care. If you don't care, they don't care. And it's sad, but to have to be doing the job of a professional as well, it's like, what are we doing? But keep in mind, as a couple, you always want to stay on top of your pay and understand that you will not always have the same pay every week, because some weeks you'll be like, okay, I made $10,000 this week, or I made $8,000 this week, or whatever the case. And next week you're making on like $1,000, and you're like, what? But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Okay, so moving right along, we have sacrifices. Moving right into trucking, you have to understand that there are things that you're going to have to sacrifice. The lifestyle is completely different. First of all, like I said, if you are on the truck with that person, you're going to have the experience of you know what I'm saying, traveling the country, going to different locations. For one, the experience with showering at truck stops, trying to find trucking. The food out there is not always the best or healthiest. Showering, for one, is crazy, because sometimes you can shower every 2 days. It just depends. And then there's weights at either the receiver or the shipper, or there's different things that you have to face as couples when you're on the road. If you're not on the road with your partner, the sacrifice that you're making is knowing that you will not be seeing your partner for X amount of time, and you have to be okay with that. Even though you have things where they have a setup where it's like, okay, I'm gonna be on the road 4 weeks and be home a week, or whatever the setup may be. Sometimes that doesn't even play out that way, because if you are responsible and you realize like, hey, I'm supposed to be home on such a date, but because of the way the money's looking, you may have to stay out either an extra week or a couple weeks or whatever. You just have to make those sacrifices. Bump talking about, hey, I'm coming home because whatever. But then when you come home, you still got to face the problems of not having the money in the account. So that's something that we've had to deal with, and we overcame that. But my husband has been out for, I'd say about 10 going on 11 weeks. He recently came home from that, and he only did about 4 to 5 days and was back out. And he's going to be out for however long again. And that is kind of crazy. It's kind of hard, especially if you want to have a family. It's kind of hard to plan ovulation cycles and everything like that with your mate, because when they're coming, you might not be ovulating. And it's just, so building a family can be really stressful. And at this point, for me, it's like hit or miss, because it's like whenever he's home, I'm either on my cycle or ended my cycle or about to start my cycle. So it never falls on the right time for us. So it's like at this point, I don't say I give up, but it's not on the top of my dome like, okay, this is going to happen. No, that's another sacrifice that I have to deal with. So that's that. Another thing that I can think of is staying focused on the goal. A lot of times, and this happens in my relationship, a lot of times is we will get lost in, oh my God, we made this amount of money, forgetting that, okay, we need to take that money and put it aside for XYZ or future things that we have set up. And we'll see all this money and we want to go splurge it. We'll want to be careless with the money, or we'll want to, you know what I'm saying? Like just splurge basically, or whatever, and just not stay focused on the goal. And that can come back and bite you in the butt, because 1 month you will say, oh my God, I made this amount of money, and we're just out here forming the fool with the money. And then rent comes around and you're like, oh my God, I thought this check was going to hit, and it doesn't. And see what I'm saying? Like we get backed up into a hole, and it's like, oh my gosh. But we have been able to come out of it successfully and have learned from then to start putting money aside, even though it seems like later down the road we'll be fine. We still just put the money aside regardless. So that's one of the things that we have been dealing with. And the last thing I can think of is just being a helpmate. If you are on the truck with your partner, you want to be as helpful as possible rather than be a hindrance, because if they're on the truck driving and you're just in the passenger seat, which I'm not a trucker, I'm just a passenger rider when I'm on the truck with him, I make sure I have meals prepared for him, his liquids, his fluids prepared for him, whatever he may need, without having to park the truck, stop and get out, other than having to go use the restroom. I make sure that it's there and available for him. And when he's ready for it, I can just hand it to him. So there's that. Or I can do things like prepare his clothes for when he has to go shower, or make sure the truck is clean, just certain things like that, being a helpmate than being a hindrance. So these are just the things that you guys have to look out for when you are thinking about going into the trucking company or the trucking field as a couple, a married couple, or a boyfriend and girlfriend, or however it is, fiance, or whatever. These are some of the things I can think of that you would want to take into consideration when you are stepping into trucking. Hopefully this information was helpful to some of you guys. If I have any more to add, I'll probably put it in the description. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section, and I will be sure to answer those. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.